Determining whether you surround yourself with peaceful people or chaotic people is up to you. But watching someone succumb to pride is shambolic, especially because it's easily avoidable. I'm an orange, and when somebody has two relative personalities to pride, you find 3 ways you should avoid failure. To preserve your later cerebral overflow, pride is self-idolatry, and the mindset that brings about every single kind of destruction. Dandadan just about fully explains pride in the strangest way. Unless you want to experience the one mentality that goes before destruction, like Okarun, you need to know pride stems from arrogance. More specifically, disobedience. If you love or loved anyone, you'd have obeyed, respected, and kept their commandments and values, like a kid to their guardian. However, since this world's warped the definition of obedience from respect to suspect, obedience is seen as a perverted form of submission when it's actually submission of the highest regard of love you can show. Taking Okarun, he literally shows obedience by going along with Momo to do basically everything he doesn't like doing as an exaggeration. I mean, he literally goes from reading about earthworms to fighting cheapy musicians with explosive music notes and getting his testiculars stolen by whatever the heck you want to call this.
Oh my god, bro. Oh, hell no, man. What the fuck?
Like, come on, bro. But the problem comes when you realize this is actually a form of pride. Pride comes in many forms, shapes, and sizes. Even though obedience is the highest form of love anyone can really show, what separates pride from humility is who exactly you show your obedience to. That makes it respect or suspect. Obeying God over man, Okarun breaks the very first commandment. Put no other gods before me. But he breaks it in a strange but universal way everybody does. An example would be when the Israelites, when left alone for 5 seconds, started worshiping a golden cow they erected. Putting your own motives before anyone, especially God's plan, is how Okarun focuses 100% of his energy into Momo's happiness, being one of the 3 forms of pride. And since Momo isn't God, breaking the first commandment is actually something everyone's done at some point. Mainly because gods in this context means anyone or thing you do taking your attention away from God the Father. Like how you want to talk in a 3-way conversation, but it always turns into A and B instead of A, B, and C. I can't tell you how many times this has happened to me, since a god or idol literally can be anything from your phone or favorite game with copious amounts of screen time to Momo being Okarun's only focus for the entire first 2 seasons, but Okarun showing he's got no other obedience or allegiance besides Momo's happiness. Just because everyone's done something bad doesn't mean you should do it. Since Okarun putting every resource toward his goals, he's unaware of what it's actually doing to him, effectively deafening him to God's voice. Listening attentively to God's voice, the voice of power, the still small voice of knowledge, is the second aspect that determines your pride or your humility. God doesn't always respond with volcanoes, earthquakes, or pillars of fire. Unless it's literally the end of the world, God will respond in a still small voice, asking, "What are you doing here?" And although God Almighty respectively aura farms more than Sung Jin Woo, limiting noise to hear God's voice and knowing where your energy goes, your effort flows, is why Okarun's effectively deaf. He doesn't consult the authority that's given him influence unless it's to save Momo or fight Beethoven's explosive bomb. Granted, the authority did steal his testiculars. It's the same as straight A students. There's going to be one of 2 options: stuck up or timid, because of the authority they possess or because of the pressure of expectation. But how you see both in one character is Okarun being condescending, mainly due to Granny Chio's curse and probably from losing his balls, but he's also regularly timid. There's nothing wrong with wanting to be your best, But it gets to Okudun's point of putting all his eggs into one basket, making Momo happy, ignoring the still small voice and blessings along with his other relationships. But because people need companionship, it's ironic he starts off without functioning relationships because arrogance is what pride's known for. Since listening to anyone, giving your attention to anyone, no matter how loud or quiet, is one of the most important ways to show your respect and obedience. Especially after you realize simple communication is the best communication. It shows you're listening, it shows you actually care whether they speak or you just miss them say the most diabolical and out of context thing known to mankind. Okudun rarely consults anyone unless he has to, being Turbo Baba and even sometimes the idol in question unless he's in a crisis, like getting pummeled by a grown man wearing tighty chonies. But when you show anyone, especially God, you're intentionally ignoring them, you're saying you could care less about your neighbor's life. But everything I've just mentioned actually can be a simple fix. Pride actually only comes down to influence and neglect because it comes from what you consume. But since effort goes where energy flows, your pride and humility depend on what you surround yourself with.